The next example is a company called Jones Lang LaSalle. It's a property company, property consultancy. They've grown quickly, mainly through acquisition, and are now in a lot of countries. And because of the acquisition, they got a very decentralized marketing structure, and they even have companies that have come into the fold that are from completely different companies. So their main challenge is to take a lot of different companies essentially and try and make them into a unified global company. So JLL created what they call the Brand Hub, visually branded to create an immersive experience for the users. And the aim was not to impose the brand and the values and objectives on potentially unwilling users, but also to draw people in and make them feel part of something bigger while still allowing local flexibility. And when the marketing and sales staff are decentralized, they can feel very isolated, and this is quite hard. You often need somebody to bounce an idea off, you need to get inspiration from work that others have done. Also, when you're alone, or nearly alone, in your department, maybe out in an outpost, it's quite easy to start going off-brand and off-message, which is not good. So therefore, if that's one of your areas where you'd like to pull teams closer together, it's not all global companies that this relates to, by the way. For smaller companies, it's also relevant. You might want to look at who's who listing. Fairly simple, but just knowing what your colleagues look like and a little bit about them, make people feel more connected. You might want to look at a blog, being able to create for anybody to be able to do ad hoc questions and post and other people to comment on it, make people feel more connected. And it also has the benefit that you're drawing on the knowledge of the wider team, whereas in a lot of companies, all of these kind of ad hoc requests that just go to one person, and they can't possibly be the best at all answers. And they're overloaded, of course. You may be some of them. This will also help build up a knowledge base of all of those odd one-out questions that people need to know about, that you might be answering 5 times instead of once. And I think alerting is quite important as well. These days, a brand identity or brand persona usually doesn't stay static for very long. Lots of brands are even building evolution into it by design, so I guess especially teen, youth and sports brands are continually evolving even their logos every quarter, or creating new ones. So new material will be coming on stream all the time, and you really need the wider team to know about new things, updated things, and indeed things that are out of date that people shouldn't be using anymore. And then finally, what we call best practice sharing. Here's an example of that. So JLL created what they call the showcase. It's essentially a section where people in an organized, or local markets in an organized manner can upload what they think of as their best or most effective work, which then creates inspiration for others, and it also cuts down on duplication of work. So especially, I guess, the larger the company is, the more duplication of work you might have. Somebody in Australia might be creating something that's near identical to what somebody in England has already done, they just didn't know about it. So if you can cut down on the duplication of work, not only will you be making people more effective, but you also cut down on your costs. So the results for JLL has been increased clarity, but also financial results. So in the words of the global brand director, the sort of more softer side is that people can feel part of something bigger, but they don't lose the autonomy, and also it ultimately drives more sales. They also won something called Best Performing Property Brand, an awards done by Managing Partners Forum. Lots of these awards are pretty subjective because they're based on aesthetics, I guess. This one isn't. They won because they've shown the greatest improvement in brand value over the previous year. That was calculated by a company called Brand Finance using what they call royalty relief methodology, which basically means that if you were to license just the brand part of a company, how much royalty would you pay them So in the example of Coca-Cola, if you want to go out and buy Coca-Cola wholesale, you probably need about $160 billion. But if you just wanted to buy the brand part of it and none of the distribution, the factories, the distribution, that would probably cost you about 80 billion. So that would be the royalty relief for Coca-Cola would be about 80 billion. So it's very substantial numbers. Actually, but there's an interesting statistic around the development for what's called intangibles, where brand is part of an intangible asset as opposed to tangibles like machinery and cars and factories. 25 years ago, the total value of the top 500 companies in the US, 75% of that was tangible assets, 75% of the market capitalization. Now it's less than 20%. So the combined value of the top 500 companies, 80% of that is in intangibles. So there's big financial numbers involved in not just branding. So basic intangibles are mainly intellectual property rights, know-how, customer data. Data is very important these days, and goodwill and branding. So very, very substantial amount of benefits. To when the CEO asks you about why you should be doing this. So I'll just show a couple of examples, really to stress just how important usability and an on-brand experience is in one of these portals. So we have a client in Florida called Transitions Optical. They make glass lenses that go darker in the sun. Not a massive company, it's not a medium company, but they're still in multiple markets. This was a system they had, which, by the way, is pretty expensive. Virtually nobody was using it. They were rebelling against it due to lack of intuitive interface, and simply just it was too ugly. Creative people like things to look good, and if it doesn't, they'll just switch off. There was no sharing between the countries, and subsequently the marketing team was overloaded with ad hoc requests because people were basically bypassing the system and just asking manually with email or on the phone. Here's the new system. Hopefully you agree that it's a little bit nicer. And now they've been using this for 6 months, and they have 250 active users across marketing and their partners. May not sound a lot, but that's actually almost all of the people in that in those two teams. They are sharing now between countries. There's about 2,500 logins per month, so on average people using about 10 times a month. It's pretty good. And we calculate that they've made about a $500,000 saving compared to the old system. And by the way, there's no real difference in functionality. There's a little bit, but mainly it's because it's simply just being used, whereas the other one wasn't. Another example, Aetna, you might not be aware, it's a big American healthcare company, private healthcare. Similar sort of story, users were basically rebelling against it, difficult to use. I think it's pretty safe to say that there's no sense of community or pride. Nobody is leading by example wouldn't be the way I would describe this. Here's the new system. And the difference is just amazingly drastic. There are 17,000 unique users, that's half of the entire workforce using the system. Not only has it informed virtually half the employees anyway, about what the brand is about, because they went through a big rebrand and repositioning, but also it's mandatory for all new employees to use this, to get immersed in what the brand is, and what they should be doing beyond their own sort of role, and they're increasing the differentiation in the marketplace. So, really drastic difference. So, just to round up, this is fairly simplistic. If you can achieve internal brand alignment across departments, there will be more productive and focused employees, which will lead to delighted and loyal customers, and of course that leads to profit and revenue. I do realize it's not quite as simple as this. There's a myriad of factors in creating a success, but this is certainly a very important one. And I guess just to sort of take away, don't spend all your time on external marketing. Internal marketing is very important, and you will get a much better effect of external marketing if you can get the other departments to play ball. If your company with, I guess, that's in a couple of markets or more, create an online brand marketing space to educate and to provide implementation tools. The primary users will probably be marketing, sales, PR, and partners like agencies, but also for the general employees. And make sure that you make it nice to use and make it useful so people will want to use it. Because if you don't, you've wasted the effort, essentially. So finally, I'm just going to, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted about the importance of telling a story, but I thought I'd just leave you with one example of icebreaker storytelling, which I love. If you can't see the wool factory, it's here. There's some sheep that are busy producing the next generation of wool in a very environmental manner. Thanks very much. I'd love to hear if there's any feedback, if any of you had these experiences or problems, or how you've solved them, or just any general questions. I will take that as I've covered everything instead of boring you to death. So thanks very much for coming.